If you don't want to pay, let the authorities arbitrate. The dwarf ground his teeth and was just reaching for his battle axe when Geralt seized him by the elbow. Calm down. How do you want to solve this problem? By killing them all? Why kill them right away? It's enough to cripple them good and proper. That's enough, darn it, the Witcher hissed and then turned to the peasant. These authorities you were talking about, who are they? Our camp elder, Hector Larbs, the headman from Brazer, one of the villages that was burnt down. Lead us to him then. We'll come to some agreement. He's busy at present, the peasant announced. He's sitting in judgment on a witch. There, do you see that crowd by the maple? They've caught a hag who's in league with a vampire. Here we go again, Dandelion snorted, spreading his arms. Did you hear that? When they aren't digging up cemeteries, they're hunting witches, supposedly vampires' accomplices. Folks, perhaps instead of ploughing, sowing and harvesting, you'll become witches. And it turned out it was indeed like that, a second one added. We were harbouring a treacherous hag among us, but then the priest saw through her witchcraft, and now we're going to burn her. What else? The Witcher muttered. Very well, we'll take a look at your court, and we'll talk to the elder about the accident that befell the unfortunate Cloggy. We'll think about suitable conversation. Right, Percival? I'll wager that we'll find another pebble in one of your pockets. Lead on, good people. The procession set off towards a spreading maple. The ground beneath it was indeed teeming with excited people. The Witcher, having purposely slowed his pace, tried to strike up a conversation with one of the peasants who looked reasonably normal. Who's this witch they've captured? Was she really engaged in black magic? Well, sir, the peasant mumbled, I couldn't say. That wench is a waif, a stranger. To my mind, she's not quite right in the head. Grown up, but still only plays with the nippers as if she were a child herself. Ask her something, and she won't say a word. Everyone says she consorted with a vampire and hex people. Everyone except the suspect, said Regis, who until then had been walking quietly beside the Witcher. Because she, if asked, wouldn't utter a word, I'm guessing. There was not enough time for a more detailed investigation, because they were already under the maple. They made their way through the crowd, not without the help of Zoltan and his ashen staff. A girl of about 16 had been tied to the rack of a wagon laden with sacks, her arms spread wide apart. The girl's toes barely reached the ground. Just as they arrived, her shift and blouse were torn away to reveal thin shoulders. The captive reacted by rolling her eyes and loosing a foolish combination of giggling and sobbing. A fire had been started directly alongside the wagon. Someone had fanned the coals well, and someone else had used pincers to place some horseshoes in the glowing embers. The excited cries of the priest rose above the crowd.
Vile witch! Godless female! Confess the truth! Ha! Just look at her, people. She's overindulged in some devilish herbs. Just look at her. Witchery is written all over her countenance.
The priest who spoke those words was thin, and his face was as dark and dry as smoked fish. His black robes hung loosely on his skinny frame. A sacred symbol glistened on his neck. Geralt didn't recognise which deity it represented, and anyway he wasn't an expert. The pantheon, which in recent times had been growing quickly, did not interest him much. The priest must, however, have belonged to one of the newer religious sects. The older ones were concerned with more useful matters than catching girls, tying them to wagons, and inciting superstitious mobs against them.
Since the dawn of time, woman has been the root of all evil, the tool of chaos, the accomplice in a conspiracy against the world and the human race. Woman is governed only by carnal lust. That is why she so willingly serves demons, in order to slake her insatiable urges and her unnatural wantonness.
We'll soon learn more about women, Regis muttered. This is a phobia in a pure clinical form. The devout man must often dream about a vagina dentata. I'll wager it's worse, Dandelion murmured. I'm absolutely certain that even when he's awake he dreams about a regular toothless one, and the semen has affected his brain. But it's this feeble-minded girl who will have to pay for it. Unless we can find someone, Melva growled, who'll stop that black-robed ass. Dandelion looked meaningfully and hopefully at the Witcher, but Geralt avoided his gaze.
And of what, if not female witchery, are our current calamities and misfortunes the result?
The priest continued to yell.
For no one else but the sorceresses betrayed the kings on the Isle of Thaned and concocted the assassination of the king of Redania. Indeed, no one else but the elven witch of Dol Blathanna is sending squirrels after us. Now you see what evils of familiarity with sorceresses has led us to. And their willfulness, their impudent hubris, and their wealth. And who is to blame? The kings. The vainglorious kings renounced the gods, drove away the priests, took away their offices and seats on councils, and showered the loathsome sorceresses with honors and gold. And now we all suffer the consequences.
Aha, there lies the rub, Dandelion said. You were wrong, Regis. It was all about politics and not vaginas. And about money, Zoltan Shive added.
Verily, I say unto you, before we join battle with Nilfgaard, let us first purge our own house of these abominations. Scorch this abscess with a white-hot iron. Subject it to a baptism of fire. We shall not allow any woman who dabbles in witchcraft to live.
We shall not allow it! Burn her at the stake! Yelled the crowd. The girl who was bound to the wagon laughed hysterically and rolled her eyes. All right, easy does it, said a lugubrious peasant of immense size who until that moment had been silent, and around whom was gathered a small group of similarly silent men and several grim-faced women. We've only heard squawking so far. Everyone's capable of squawking, even crows. We expect more from you, venerable father, than we would from a crow.
Do you refute my words, Elder Labs, the words of a priest?
I'm not refuting anything, the giant replied. Then he spat on the ground and hitched up a pair of coarse breeches. That wench is an orphan and a stray, no family of mine. If it turns out that she's in league with a vampire, take her and kill her. But while I'm the elder of this camp, only the guilty will be punished here. If you want to punish her, first establish her guilt.
Then I shall,
the priest screamed, giving a sign to his stooges, the main ones who had previously put the horseshoes into the fire.
I'll show you incontrovertibly, you Labs, and everyone else present here.
His stooges brought out a small blackened cauldron with a curved handle from behind the wagon and set it on the ground.
Here is the proof,
the priest roared, kicking the cauldron over. A thin liquid spilt onto the ground, depositing some small pieces of carrots, some strips of unrecognizable greens, and several small bones onto the sand.
The witch was brewing a magic concoction, an elixir which enabled her to fly through the air to her vampire lover, to have immoral relations with him and hatch more iniquities. I know the ways and deeds of sorcerers, and I know what the decoct is made of. The witch boiled up a cat alive!
The crowd oohed and ahed in horror. Ghastly, Dandelion said, shuddering. Boiling a creature alive. I felt sorry for the girl, but she went a bit too far. Shut your gob, Milver hissed.
Here is the proof,
the priest yelled, holding up a small bone he had removed from the steaming puddle.
Here is the irrefutable proof, a cat's bone.
That's a bird's bone, Zoltan Shive said coldly, squinting. It's a jay's, I would say, or a pigeon's. The girl cooked herself up some broth, and that's it.
Silence, you pagan imp, the priest roared. Don't blaspheme, or the gods will punish you at the hands of the pious. The brew came from a cat, I tell you.
From a cat, without a doubt a cat, the peasants surrounding the priest yelled. The wench had a cat, a black cat. Everyone knew she did. It followed her around everywhere. And where is that cat now? It's gone into the pot.
Cooked, boiled up as a potion.
Right you are. The witch has cooked up the cat into a potion.
No other proof is needed. Into the fire with the witch. But first torture her. Let her confess everything.
Fucking hell, Field Marshal Wimbag squawked.
It's a shame about that cat,
Percival Shootenback suddenly said in a loud voice.
It was a fine beast, sleek and fat, fur shining like anthracite, eyes like two chrysoberyls, long whiskers and a tail as thick as a mechanical's tool. Everything you could want in a cat. He must have caught plenty of mice.
The peasants fell silent.
And how would you know, Master Gnome? Someone asked. How do you know what the cat looked like?
Percival Shootenback cleared his nose and wiped his fingers on a trouser leg.
Because he's sitting over there on a cart, right behind you.
The peasants all turned at once, muttering as they observed the cat sitting on a pile of bundles. The cat, meanwhile, utterly unconcerned about being the centre of attention, stuck a hind leg up in the air and got down to licking his rump.
Thus it has turned out, Zoltan Shive said, breaking the silence, that your irrefutable proof is a load of crap, Reverend. What will the next proof be? Perhaps a she-cat? That would be good. Then we'll put them together. They'll produce a litter, and not a single rodent will come in half an arrow's shot of the granary.
Several peasants snorted, and several others, including Elder Larbs, cackled openly. The priest turned purple with rage.
I will remember you, blasphemer, he roared, pointing a finger at the dwarf. Oh, heathen kobold! Oh, creature of darkness! How did you come to be here? Perhaps you are in collusion with a vampire. Just wait. We'll punish the witch and then we'll interrogate you. But first we'll try the witch. The horseshoes have already been put on the coals, so we'll see what the sinner reveals when her hideous skin starts to sizzle. I tell you, she will confess to the crimes of witchcraft herself, and what more proof is there than a confession?
Oh, she will, Hector Larb said, and were red-hot horseshoes placed against the soles of your feet, Reverend, you would surely even confess to the immoral coition with a mare. Ugh, you are a godly man, but you sound like a rascal.
Yes, I am a godly man,
the priest bellowed, out-shouting the intensifying murmurs of the peasants.
I believe in divine judgment, and in a divine trial. Let the witch face trial by ordeal.
Excellent idea, the Witcher interrupted loudly stepping out from the crowd. The priest glared at him. The peasants stopped muttering and stared at him with mouths agape. Trial by ordeal, Geralt repeated to complete silence from the crowd, is utterly certain and utterly just. The verdicts of trial by ordeal are also accepted by secular courts and have their own principles. These rules say that in the case of a charge against a woman, child, old or otherwise enfeebled person, a defence counsel may represent them. Am I right, Elder Larbs? So I hereby offer myself in that role. Mark off the circle. Whomsoever is certain of the girl's guilt and not afraid of trial of ordeal should step forward and do battle with me.
Ha!
The priest called, still glaring at him.
Don't be too cunning, noble stranger. Throwing down the gauntlet. It's clear at once. You are a swordsman and a killer. You wish to conduct a trial of ordeal with your criminal sword? If the sword doesn't suit your reverence, the Zoltan Shive announced in a drawling voice, standing alongside a Geralt, and if you object to this gentleman, perhaps I would be more suitable. By all means, may the girl's accuser take her battle-axe against me.
Or challenge me at archery, Milva said, narrowing her eyes and also stepping forward. A single arrow each at 100 paces.
Do you see, people, how quickly defenders of the witch are springing up?
The priest screamed and then turned away and contorted his face into a cunning smile.
Very well, you good-for-nothings. I invite all three of you to the trial by ordeal, which will soon take place. We shall establish the hag's guilt and test your virtue at one and the same time, but not using swords, battle-axes, lances, or arrows. You say the rules. I also know them. See the horseshoes in the coals, glowing white-hot. Baptism of fire. Come, O minions of witchcraft. Whomsoever removes a horseshoe from the fire, brings it to me, and betrays no marks of burning, will have proven that the witch is innocent. If, though, the trial of ordeal reveals something else, then it shall be the death of all of you, and to her I have spoken.
The hostile rumble of Elder Larbs and his group was drowned out by the enthusiastic cries of most of the people gathered behind the priest. The mob had already scented excellent sport and entertainment. Milver looked at Zoltan, Zoltan at the Witcher, and the Witcher first at the sky, and then at Milver. "Do you believe in the gods?" he asked in hushed tones. "Yes, I do," the archer snapped back softly, looking at the glowing coals. "But I don't think they'll be bothered by red-hot horseshoes." "It's no more than 3 paces from the fire to that bastard," Zoltan hissed through clenched teeth. "I'll get through it somehow. I work in a foundry, but if you wouldn't mind praying to your gods for me." "One moment," Emil Regis said, placing a hand on the dwarf's shoulder. "Please, withhold your prayers." The barber surgeon walked over to the fire, bowed to the priest and the audience, then stooped rapidly and put his hand into the hot coals. The crowd screamed as one. Zoltan cursed and Milver dug her fingers into Garrott's arm. Regis straightened up, calmly looking down at the white-hot horseshoe he was holding, and walked unhurriedly over to the priest. The priest took a step back, bumping into the peasant standing behind him. "This was the idea, if I'm not mistaken, your reverence," Regis said, holding up the horseshoe. "Baptism of fire? If so, I believe the divine judgment is unambiguous. The girl is innocent. Her defenders are innocent, and I, just imagine, am also innocent."
Show me your hand, the priest mumbled. Is it not burnt?
The barber surgeon smiled his usual smile with pursed lips, then moved the horseshoe to his left hand and showed his right hand, totally unharmed, first to the priest, and then, holding it up high to everyone else. The crowd roared. "Whose horseshoe is this?" Regis asked. "Let the owner take it back." No one came forward.
It's a devilish trick,
the priest bellowed.
You are a sorcerer yourself, or the devil incarnate.
Regis threw the horseshoe onto the ground and turned around. "Carry out an exorcism on me, then," he suggested coldly. "You are free to do so, but the trial of ordeal has taken place. I have heard, though, that to question his verdict is heresy."
"Perish! Begone!"
the priest shrieked, waving an amulet in front of the barber surgeon's nose and tracing cabalistic signs with his other hand.
"Begone to the abyss of hell, devil! May the earth be riven asunder beneath you!"